Last time I flipped this hull over. This time, we start putting the skin on. 16 planks per side, scarfed, fitted, and epoxy one at a time. When this episode is done, Alice Gale is going to start looking like a boat from the outside for the first time. Let's get into it. Before any plank goes on the hull, the plywood panels have to be made. Alice Gale's planks are longer than a standard 4x8 sheet of plywood. Each panel is built up from 2 sheets joined end to end with a scarf joint, a long, angled splice that creates a connection almost as strong as the wood itself. The ratio I used was 12:1. That means for every inch of panel thickness, the scarf runs 12 inches along the board. My panels were 6mm plywood, about 1/4 inch, so each scarf joint ran roughly 3 inches of slope across the full board width. Multiply that across 8 panels per side, and you have a lot of angled cuts to make. I'd been thinking about the scarfing since early in the project. It was one of the tasks I'd flagged as potentially difficult. The kind of thing where a bad cut means a weak hull. You don't want to be redoing planks once they're epoxied to the hull. As it turned out, I'd worried about the wrong thing. I started with a hand plane. That was slow and difficult. Maintaining a consistent angle across the full width of the board while taking off thin shavings is the kind of task that looks simple in a video and feels very different in practice. I switched to a power plane after the first board and never looked back. All 8 panels, stacked together with the scarf marks aligned, run through the power plane at once. Consistent angle, clean material removal. A follow-up pass with a belt sander at 80 grit gave me the final surface. Each scarf took maybe 20 minutes once I'd worked out the method. Joining the scarves is thickened epoxy, clamps, weights, and wedges. You coat both surfaces, align them, and apply even clamping pressure across the full joint. Thickened epoxy, mixed with colloidal silica to a peanut butter consistency, fills any small surface irregularities and creates a bond that's actually stronger than the surrounding plywood. Leave it overnight, remove the clamps in the morning, and you have a full-length panel ready to go on the hull. "16 panels total, 8 per side. After scarfing, I thought I was going to start making fast, visible progress. I had this picture in my head: cutting planks, fitting them to the hull, watching the boat come together one board at a time. Not quite. I spent 3 weeks on the first 2 planks. The garboard is the bottom plank, the one that runs right along the keel. It's also the most curved. At the bow, it has to twist and fare into the stem at a steep angle. At the stern, it meets the transom. Getting a flat panel of plywood to conform to that 3-dimensional curve without cracking, without gaps, and without distorting the shape of the hull requires patience and more trial fittings than you'd expect. Each fitting tells you something. You trim a little, dry fit again, find a new spot that's off. Repeat. I had such difficulty with the garboard bend that I pulled out a steamer. Steam bending works on solid wood by temporarily softening the lignin, the cellular glue that holds the wood fibers together, so the wood can be bent to shape and held there until it cools and sets. I built a steam tent around the plank and ran it for about 10 minutes. The wood bent cleanly. I clamped it to shape and let it set. Then I looked it up. Steam bending glued plywood is not recommended. The heat can compromise the laminating adhesive between the plies. I inspected the joint carefully once the plank was off the steam. The glue appeared intact. I couldn't find any delamination. I installed the garboard and it's held fine, but I wouldn't do it again. The way to get a garboard to bend is with clamps, time, and patience. Wet the outside of the plank if you need to soften it slightly. The steam tent was a shortcut I didn't need and shouldn't have taken. The second plank went better. The third was harder than the first. Each strake has its own geometry, and you learn as you go. By the time I was fitting the third board, I had a routine. Dry fit, mark, trim, dry fit again. Screw to the hull temporarily, apply epoxy, clamp, come back the next day. I want to talk about something for a second. When you're in the middle of a project like this, 3 weeks on 2 planks, when you thought you'd be done in 3 days, it's easy to lose perspective. The boat looked the same from the outside. The work was real. You just couldn't see it yet. The third strake went on in early April, along with the false keel. The false keel is the external backbone running along the bottom of the hull. It protects the keel from grounding damage and gives the boat better grip on the water at low speeds. It's laminated from plywood and shaped to fare smoothly into the hull lines. I fitted it before the third plank went on, so the panel edges could be feathered into it cleanly. One habit I was developing by this point: finish any interior spaces before you close them off. Once a plank goes on, certain areas become inaccessible. If you haven't primed or sealed that space, you're dealing with it through a very small opening with a very long brush. I started applying finish paint to enclose spaces before they disappeared, the paint that would end up permanently inside the hull. The keel band is the metal strip that runs the length of the external keel. It protects the wood from abrasion on gravel ramps and hard bottoms. I'd had mine cut from steel stock and fitted it dry to get the shaping right. The keel needed to be faired to match the band's curve exactly, which meant careful work with a plane and a lot of checking. Once the hull painting was done, the band would go back on permanently. For now, it came off and stayed clear of the hull paint. The fourth board was straightforward by this point. The rhythm was established. After the fourth board, I built the bilge keels. Bilge keels are small, longitudinal fins on the underside of the hull, one on each side, set at roughly 45 degrees from the center line. They reduce rolling when the boat is at anchor, and they protect the hull planking when the boat is beached or resting on a trailer. Mine were cut from oak stock. Shaping them required cutting compound curves. The bilge keel has to curve both longitudinally, following the run of the hull, and in cross-section, sitting flush against the angled hull surface. I rough cut the shapes with the jigsaw and shaped to final fit with rasps and files. Once I was happy with the fit, I attached them permanently with epoxy and stainless steel screws. The fifth board required a jig upgrade. As the planks work their way up the hull sides, the strakes become more vertical. Trying to hold a panel against a nearly vertical surface while fitting and temporarily fastening it is awkward. The designer's solution is a pivot support system. 2 pillar and pivot supports at bow and stern that let you tilt the entire hull a few degrees to one side, bringing the working surface closer to horizontal. I built these supports and started working with the hull tilted for the first time. The difference in ease of working was immediate. 5 boards per side in. The bow fitting for the fifth board required a specific technique: a 22mm strip cut from opposing boards, tapered from 12 inches back from the tip to half the board width. The 2 panels overlap at the bow with this strip, and the result is a consistent thickness at the stem with a smooth, faired transition between boards. It's one of those details that's easier to see in a photo than to describe in words. 5 boards in and the hull is starting to look like something. 3 more to go per side and she'll be ready to flip again, this time right side up. We're getting there. Next time, we keep going.